Hello, and welcome again to another episode, I guess, of Dubs, the Angry Black Conservative. I am your host, Dubs. I wanted to talk about this Rayshard Brooks situation. I didn't want to do anything about it until he had been put to rest. I thought it'd be the respectful thing. I just want to talk about this thing factually. So, so first of all, I want to read you something. This is from the Atlanta Police SOP books, SOP, Standard Operating Procedures, and it reads the use of deadly force. And basically, this is what you're going to do. These are the rules that you're going to follow. This is your way of coping with a situation. So it reads the employees may only use deadly force when he or she reasonably believes that the suspect possesses a deadly weapon or any object, device, or instrument which, when used offensively against a person, is likely to or actually does result in serious bodily injury, and when he or she reasonably believes that the subject poses an immediate threat of serious bodily injury to the officers or others, or when there is, and this is number two, when there is a probable cause to believe that the suspect has committed a crime involving the infliction or threatened infliction of serious physical harm. Now, they have this, this is a OCGA section 17 4 20. And the employee reasonably believes that the suspect's escape would create a continuing danger of serious physical harm to any person. So, any person being either officers or civilians. So, let's talk about what happened that night. So, for our young brothers out there who are saying that he was pulled from the car and then just shot by the police, that's not the case. And I don't understand how this can possibly be argued. There's video of the entire situation. So you have a gentleman who drives to a Wendy's, gets in the drive-through, who is so inebriated that he passes out at the steering wheel. He didn't drive his car, park his car, and say, "Hey, I think I'm a little buzzed. Let me go and sit down for a little bit and take a nap and get in the passenger seat and take a nap." No, he was in the drive-through and was so inebriated that he passed out. The Wendy's people, because their business is now affected because no one can get through the drive-through, so the Wendy's people call the police and say, "Hey, we got a guy who's passed out in the drive-through." They give a description. The police come. The police wake him up. They're polite. They're friendly. They're professional. They tell him to go and park his car someplace else. He parks his car someplace else. Now they have to do their investigation because the man had passed out in a drive-through. This is exactly what we want police officers to do. They take him out of the car, they do all the tests. They're talking to him for over 40 minutes. Over 40 minutes they're talking to this man. He is also being polite. He is also being friendly. There's no issues. There's no cause for alarm on either side. Everything is exactly the way that we as a society would want that interaction to go. The officers decide that the man is inebriated. He has been driving while intoxicated. And when you're driving while intoxicated, you get arrested. No matter what color you are, ethnicity, cultural, or anything else, if you get behind the wheel, and you can potentially kill people because you've drank too much, this is what happens. In addition to that, he is also a felon. He's also had a violent past and so forth. Okay, cool. So again, that's not saying that he's going to do it again, but it's certainly going to put you on guard. Now, the officer goes to arrest him, and this is where everything happens. And this is why the Al Sharptons of the world and people of his ilk and the Black Lives Matter people and all those people who are race baiters, who profit off of the races being divisive instead of people getting together and just acting like regular people, This is why you have those guys saying, do not comply, fight the police officers, argue with the police. No, don't do that. Please don't do that. Again, if an officer asks you to do something, you do it. You follow his instructions. And then after you get the tickets, or even if you get processed and you're put in jail and so on and so forth, you get an attorney, you go to court, and you let it shake out in court. Because you're not going to win a fight with a police officer. So in any case, this guy, when they go to arrest him, he fights, he tries to run. They do exactly what they're supposed to do. They are supposed to chase down the subject. They get into a fight. Now, here's the thing that everyone keeps forgetting. When you look at those pictures of those police officers, they're mug shots, if you will. When you take a look at those pictures of those police officers, do they look like police officers, or do they look like two white guys who just got beat up? They look like two white guys who just got beat up. There's bruising on both of their faces. The reason why there's bruises is because Rayshard beat the snot out of them. He took them. He was strong enough, and he was capable enough of taking both of those officers to the ground and pounding on them. And while he's on the ground pounding on them, they're tasing him. It has no effect. And then in addition to that, he's trying to grab the taser from them. Now, is there a possibility he was trying to grab other weapons? We don't know. And frankly, to me, I don't care. All I know is that he was being arrested, and he was resisting arrest in a very violent way. He punched both officers. One of them has a concussion, which again, the liberal media, the mob, if you will, they're not discussing that. Then, as he's taken a taser away from one of them, he gets up, he swings another time, and he goes to run. And again, this is why I read that description of the use of deadly force that allows officers to use deadly force. He's already done bodily injury. He's got a taser. The taser was shot twice. Now, people say that, well, after the taser has been shot twice, it can't be shot anymore. You're absolutely correct. However, in the heat of the moment, instead of the Monday morning quarterbacking, in the heat of the moment, is it possible that the officers forgot about that? Is it possible that the officers lost track of which one of the tasers had been used? Well, to me, none of that stuff matters, because they had a violent criminal who had already beaten the two of them up, who had already proven strong enough to take them down and pound on them. He gets up, he starts to run away, and again, the continuing danger of serious physical harm to any person. That guy had just assaulted two police officers. He has a record of being a violent offender. So is it possible that they're saying to themselves, hey, this guy's going to go out and hurt someone else? A huge possibility. And not only is it a huge possibility, I think any reasonable person would think that as well. They go running after him. He's got the taser. He points the taser at the officer. When he points the taser at the officer to incapacitate the officer, he shoots it. You can clearly hear and you can clearly see on the video that when he points that taser back at the officer, there is a flash, because the taser actually goes. Because what people don't understand is that even if those two injectors have been deployed, the taser still makes a popping sound, and it still has a flash of the discharge of electricity. So in that cop's mind, oh my God, he's firing a taser at me. He has his weapon ready to go, and he fires. Now, Rayshard kept running, and that's why he got shot in the back. But the point is that the officer acted accordingly. Just because the taser did not deploy doesn't mean it didn't look like it was going to deploy. And frankly, if somebody's running away from you and they point a gun at you, you think that gun is going to fire, as any normal person would. So that officer acted accordingly. He shot him, and then that was that. Now, to have him down as murder, well, I'm looking at the statute. I don't see it. I just don't see the murder. I don't see murder 1, I don't see murder 2, I don't see murder 3. I see him following exactly what he was supposed to have done. And these people who are running after this officer saying that he needs to be arrested, the mayor comes out, says that he's guilty of murder. Well, he hasn't gone through a court case, so I don't know how you, as an elected official, can say that somebody is guilty of something when they haven't gone through the courts. Number two, you've got a DA who 2 weeks previous had said that a taser is a lethal weapon. That same DA jumped the gun and charged the officer before the investigating body was done their investigation. So he jumped the gun as well. And then thirdly, the same DA who's done these previous two things that I just said is also under investigation for basically funneling $150,000 from a charity to his campaign to himself. So this guy seems to me to be dirty as well. So if he's dirty with that, is it possible that he's being dirty with the officer and the way he's charging him? I think so. Then in addition to that, the officer himself, his stepmother has now been fired from her job. Now they're saying that, well, she was causing trouble. No, it's not. It's because we're now falling into this thing where the sins of the father are visited upon the son. And this is very, very dangerous. We're going back to old law. One of the things about the Constitution is that you're charged like an individual. And one of the things about America is we're individuals. You're not guilty for the sins of your family. You're free. And if you're going to be guilty, you're guilty because of things you did, not because of something that one of your ancestors did. And look at what's happening in this case. We're railroading these two police officers because we're angry about George Floyd. And I can't see that because George Floyd was murdered. There's witnesses. The cop did it. He killed him. These two cops were doing their job. So after you get done doing this and after you get done analyzing this and saying, well, blah, 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 well, okay, who's going to be the officer? If any time an officer uses deadly force, that officer is immediately found guilty in the court of public opinion, and then you have some DA who wants to go out there and make a name for himself and get famous because he put that murdering cop away, well, who's going to be the officers? This guy followed the statute. I read the statute. I read the statute to you. I've told you how you can look up the statute. Read the statute. Take a look again at that video. It's not like you can't find it anywhere. And you think to yourself, forget the colors. Forget the fact that it's two white cops. Forget the fact that it's a black man. Just say to yourself, there are three men involved in this situation. There are three human beings involved in this situation. Did the two human beings who have a badge on their chest, who go out every night and deal with some of the worst in people and sometimes some of the best in people, but they're dealing with the worst in people. They've got a guy who is a felon. He assaults them, grabs one of their weapons, and then runs away and then tries to fire that weapon at them. What else did you want them to do? What else could they have done in that situation? What should they have done? Because here's the deal. If they did not do what they did, they would actually be in violation of the statute itself because they let that guy go after he did those things. And I'll say one other thing about this situation, which I find to be so distressing. If you have never been in a physical altercation, if you've never been in a fight, if you've never had to defend yourself from someone who has punched you in the face, then you really don't understand what happened. And I believe that those life experiences give you an understanding that people who do not have that life experience will never understand. You cannot describe to somebody what being punched in the face is like. You can't describe to someone who's never been kicked in the chest what it feels like to be kicked in the chest. You just can't. You say, well, the wind gets knocked out. No, it's one of those experiences that in order to understand it, you need to have had it happen to you. It's just that simple. If you're trying to subdue someone who does not want to be subdued, and you're trying to subdue them without hurting them or without killing them, That is extremely difficult. I weigh 300 pounds and I'm 6'1". And if you told me to go and peaceably subdue a 100-pound, 14-year-old girl, it would be extremely difficult for me to do that without employing force to overcome that person. And when you employ force to overcome another human being, it is ugly to watch. And if you don't understand that, I would strongly suggest that you go and find somebody who studies the martial arts. Or if you can't do that, go to a martial arts school and say to that person, hey, listen, I'd like to do an experiment. Do you have 10 minutes of time? And have that person try and subdue you when you are doing everything you possibly can to not be subdued. And that person can't use deadly force to subdue you. It's an ugly thing to watch. It is a violent, physical encounter. And the person who's trying to subdue you has got to be incredibly skilled in order to do it. That's why when that happens and you watch it on cops or body cam or live PD, you see 3 officers or 4 officers or 7 officers basically swarm on the guy and just get him onto the ground. And if you don't see that and it's a one-on-one altercation or a one-on-two altercation, that's why you see the police use a chokehold, because the chokehold is the most efficient way of subduing someone, relatively speaking, without hurting them. If you're going to subdue somebody with a punch, well, that's an ugly situation. You're going to do it with a kick, that's an ugly situation. You're going to do it with a baton, that's an ugly situation. If you're going to put somebody down with a chokehold, you can do it, relatively speaking, without hurting them. And with also, and here's the deal, without allowing yourself to be hurt in the process, because you got to get up and go to work the next day. And to all those police officers out there who put that badge on at the beginning of their shift, at the end of the shift, we want them all to go home. We want them to go home to their families. And if you're saying to me, yeah, well, Rayshard couldn't go home to his family, you're absolutely correct. And that's because he made a stupid decision. He fought the police. He resisted arrest. He did not follow instructions. And it's a shame that we've lost another human being. It's a shame that we lost a black man. He's a family man. He's got children. But you know what? If he was thinking about his kids to begin with, he wouldn't have gotten behind the wheel and been inebriated. If he was thinking about his kids, he wouldn't have tried to fight the police when they tried to handcuff him. If he was thinking about his kids, he would not have run. If he was thinking about his kids, he would not have beaten the 2 police officers up. When he was thinking about his kids, he wouldn't have tried to steal the taser, and he wouldn't have run again after that. This was a series of bad decisions made by a human being named Rayshard, and unfortunately, because of that situation, he is now dead. But if you're going to sit there and tell me that this police officer or these police officers are guilty of murder, I'm sorry, I just don't see it in this one. And anyone who wants to argue with me, by all means, come on and argue with me and tell me where I'm factually wrong. And with that, I'll leave you. Thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate it. You guys have a great day. I'm looking for things to start getting better in this world. I can't stand the divisiveness that's happening. I want to bring people together, and the only way to bring people together is having that adult conversation, being factually accurate when you're talking about things. Let's have a little honesty out there. You guys have a great one. Bye-bye.